There are stories that shake us, and then there are stories that gently reach inside and change us forever. Today's video is one of those rare moments where love, patience, and understanding break through walls no one else could touch. Imagine a billionaire betting $1 million that no one could tame his dangerous dog, and imagine a quiet 12-year-old girl with a harmonica and a heavy heart proving him wrong. If you're new here, and stories like these speak to your heart, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. We're building a space where emotion, compassion, and storytelling come together, and your support helps us keep that going. $1 million, barked Harrison Grant, his voice cutting through the crisp autumn air like a whip crack. That's what I'll pay, cash, if anyone here can get that mutt to sit still beside them for 5 minutes. The crowd gathered at the Willow Bend County Livestock Fair shifted, eyes darting between the billionaire in a designer coat and the German shepherd pacing inside a rusted kennel. Farmers, breeders, trainers, and townsfolk all looked on, some curious, others skeptical. The dog was massive, caked in mud and scarred from a life that hadn't been kind. He growled low, teeth flashing beneath the shadows of the old arena lights. The plaque on his kennel read, Diesel, but the name didn't suit him. There was something colder in his gaze, something haunted. Harrison's lips curled into a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. Let's see how far loyalty gets you without a leash or a shock collar. 2 burly ranch hands armed with thick gloves and long poles hesitated before unlatching the gate. Diesel lunged, stopped only by a rope tied to a reinforced post. Dust rose in a cloud, but no one dared step closer. No one, except a 12-year-old girl clutching something in her jacket pocket. Her name was Harper Lane. She wasn't supposed to be here, certainly not at the center of a livestock fair surrounded by shouting men and snorting cattle. Her grandmother, June, had only brought her along because she didn't want to leave Harper home alone. But from the moment Harper had seen the dog, she hadn't been able to look away. Diesel's rage didn't scare her. It felt familiar. Not like fear or anger, but something deeper. The kind of hollow you feel after life takes more than it gives. A voice from the crowd cackled. $1 million just to sit next to that hellhound? Retire before high school, kid. Harper didn't answer. She was already walking forward, sneakers, quiet on the gravel. What's this? Harrison muttered, amused. A child? I expected at least a grown fool. Harper didn't speak. She just reached into her jacket and pulled out a battered harmonica, its edges dulled by time. The initials, EL, still faintly etched into one side. Her mother's initials, the only thing left after the fire that had taken everything. She raised it to her lips and began to play. Not a song, really, just a stream of notes that danced just above the breeze. It was imperfect, but it was soft, gentle, safe. Diesel froze. The transformation wasn't instant, but it was unmistakable. The growling stopped. His head tilted slightly, ears twitching. Slowly, tentatively, he stepped forward. Harper didn't flinch. She just kept playing. And then, he sat, not like a soldier obeying a command, like something older, truer, trust. No one checked the time. No one needed to. 5 minutes passed. Silence reigned. Even Harrison's smug expression had gone cold. Harper stopped playing and stood. She brushed the dust from her jeans and reached for Diesel's collar. He rose and followed her, not like a beast conquered, but like someone who had made a choice. We're taking him home, Harper said as her grandmother rushed to her side, eyes wet with disbelief. He doesn't belong here. And so they left the auction behind. The girl, the dog no one could tame, and the woman who had never stopped believing in second chances. As they disappeared down the gravel path, a few last notes from the harmonica drifted on the wind. Not an ending, a beginning. The next morning, as pale sunlight kissed the frost-laced grass outside their weather-worn farmhouse on the edge of Red River Valley, Harper stood barefoot at the window. She watched Diesel pacing the fence line, his movement smooth and eerie, more like mist than muscle. He doesn't walk, she whispered to her grandmother June, who joined her with a steaming mug of tea. He glides. They watched in silence. For a while, the dog's form weaving through the rising light like a phantom. That afternoon, Harper gave him a new name. Ghost, she said, kneeling near the thicket where he often lingered, half hidden. Because you move like one, and your eyes, they look through people like they're already gone. Ghost didn't react, but he didn't turn away either. He just blinked, slow, unreadable. He wouldn't go inside the house, wouldn't eat from bowls, flinched at every clink of metal. The sound of a screen door slamming sent him into a crouch so low it looked like he was trying to disappear into the earth. But with Harper, it was different. He didn't snarl, didn't bite. He simply watched and followed. Not closely, but always near. June didn't interfere. She knew better than to force a connection. She'd seen this before, years ago when Harper's mother, Eliza, had tamed skittish horses no one else could approach. There was something in the girl's silence that spoke louder than words. A few days later, Dr. Lillian Monroe showed up in her dusty red pickup. She was nearly 70, the town vet, known for healing animals that others had given up on. She didn't rush toward Ghost. She just sipped tea on the porch and chatted with June about hay shortages and early frost. On her second visit, she left liver treats near the gate, didn't look at Ghost, just hummed softly to herself. By the fourth visit, Ghost let her touch his side, just long enough for her fingers to feel the layers of scarred tissue beneath his fur. "This isn't just trauma," she said quietly, after Ghost walked away. "This was training. Fear layered on fear until it's all that's left." She didn't say who trained him that way, didn't need to. That night, Harper opened her mother's old journals for the first time in months. The scent of eucalyptus rose from the pages. Eliza had always used it on her hands to calm frightened animals. The writing was rushed, passionate. Notes on behavior, scribbled quotes from workshops, ideas for gentler approaches. One entry read, "Force creates silence, not obedience. And silence isn't trust." Harper ran her thumb over the ink and looked out the window. Ghost was curled beneath the cottonwood tree, eyes half closed, ears still twitching at every sound. Across town, inside a sleek mountain lodge with glass, walls and leather chairs no one used, Harrison Grant replayed the auction footage. Over and over, he scowled, fingers tightening around a tumbler of whiskey. "She made me look like a fool," he growled. "Let's show them what real control looks like." His assistant nodded stiffly. Harrison turned to the window, his reflection warped by the cold night outside. "Schedule the demonstration for the fair. The last day. I want every rancher in this state to see what authority really means." Back on the Lane farm, Harper didn't care about fairs or contracts or cameras. She woke early, fed the hens, raked the paddocks. Then she sat beneath the cottonwood tree and read aloud from her mother's notes. Ghost never left when she read. Sometimes, when she paused to turn a page, he would move a little closer. Her harmonica stayed mostly in her pocket. It wasn't time yet. Ghost didn't need music now. He needed space. And Harper gave it. Every day. The Sage Valley Autumn Fair always drew a crowd. Families with strollers, ranchers in denim and dust, teenagers with funnel cakes and cotton candy. But this year, something was different. The main arena buzzed louder than usual. Word had spread about the girl, the dog, the $1 million bet. Reporters lined the fences. Cell phones hovered like antennae. Everyone came to see what had really happened. Nobody expected Harper Lane to be the first to walk into the ring that afternoon. No spotlight followed her. No loudspeaker announced her name. She stepped into the center of the arena with her hands in her jacket pockets and a harmonica tucked inside. Ghost was beside her, not behind. Not dragged, not coaxed. He moved with calm, deliberate steps, his head low, his eyes scanning, not with fear but with awareness, like he'd already mapped the space and made peace with it. The crowd fell into a hush. When Harper stopped walking, Ghost stopped. When she crouched, he sat. When she raised a hand, not to command but simply to invite, He mirrored her, dropping his front paws and dipping his chin in what looked almost like a bow. Gasps rippled through the stands. Some people laughed, soft, disbelieving. Most just stared, wide-eyed. No one gave orders. No treats were tossed. No clickers or leashes or pressure collars. Just presence, patience, quiet. Harper pulled out the harmonica and lifted it to her lips. No announcement, no showmanship. Just breath through metal. The tune wasn't familiar, not something you'd hear on the radio, but it drifted like a lullaby through the crisp air. And Ghost, now standing alone in the arena, turned his head toward her and listened. Then, he laid down, calm, still. Eyes fixed on her, applause began, soft, unsure. Then it built, swelled, thundered. The bleachers shook with it. But Harper didn't flinch. She gave Ghost a tiny nod and started to walk toward the gate. A voice crackled over the loudspeaker. "Well, wasn't that heartwarming?" Sarcasm echoed through the arena. "Now let's welcome a real demonstration from our headline sponsor himself, Mr. Harrison Grant." The air changed. The mood snapped. Out strode the billionaire, silver tie flashing beneath the floodlights, followed by handlers gripping the harness of a second German shepherd. This one darker, heavier, with patches of missing fur and foam at the edges of its mouth. This dog, Harrison boomed, was rejected by 4 training facilities, but we believe in results. No lullabies, no drama, just control. Handlers marched in behind him, armed with batons, noise clickers, and shock collars. The crowd shifted. Uncomfortable, parents pulled children closer. Someone muttered, "This doesn't feel right." The dog lunged and thrashed, wild-eyed. Ghost lifted his head from where he'd been lying. He stood. Harper didn't call him, didn't move. But Ghost began walking. Not fast, not tense. He stepped, calmly across the dirt, straight toward the snarling shepherd. Gasps broke from the stands. Harrison shouted, "Get him back!" But his handlers hesitated, unsure. Ghost stopped a few feet away from the other dog, sat down slowly, lowered his body to the earth. No threat, no challenge, just stillness. The other dog stilled, confused. It barked once, sharp, panicked, but Ghost didn't move. He simply lay down, paws stretched forward, tail still. The wild dog, trembling, panting, watched. Then, inch by inch, lowered itself beside him. The arena went completely silent. Harper walked to the edge of the ring, pulled out her harmonica, and played again. Soft, familiar. The same gentle melody. The second dog lifted its head and didn't move. Just listened. The crowd erupted. A wave of cheers, shouts, clapping hands, and clicking cameras. It was like a dam had burst. Reporters pushed toward the ring. Phones pointed. Microphones waved. Harrison Grant's face drained of color. He barked orders, but his handlers didn't. They couldn't. 2 dogs, one broken by men, one healed by a girl, lay side by side, untouched by the noise, unmoved by the chaos. Sheriff Danvers stepped forward from the VIP box, arms crossed, eyes locked on Harrison. The billionaire turned and left the arena, jaw tight, microphone swinging uselessly from one hand. Harper didn't bow, didn't wave. She just walked to the center of the ring and knelt beside Ghost. The other dog looked up at her, then, tentatively, pressed its head to her knee. That night, the story went viral. The footage from the fair was everywhere, on the news, social media, podcasts. The girl who listened. No commands, just connection. The clip of Ghost lying beside the once aggressive shepherd played on loop across the country. At school, Harper felt the shift. Students who'd never spoken to her lingered by her locker. Teachers glanced her way with something like awe. But Harper stayed the same, quiet, focused, present. Back at the ranch, something more important was happening. The second dog, now named Bramble, had come home with them. At first, Bramble was a shadow, always near, never close. He flinched at hands, growled at loud sounds, wouldn't eat unless no one was watching. Ghost kept his distance but stayed within sight, like a sentinel who knew the shape of that kind of fear. Dr. Monroe arrived the next day with supplies and something wrapped in cloth. "I brought more than vaccines," she told June, handing her the bundle. "The university's been calling. Behavioral researchers, trauma specialists, even canine units. They want to know how your granddaughter calmed a monster in 5 minutes." June took a sip of coffee and muttered, "She didn't tame him. She hurt him." In the barn, Harper sat with her mother's journal open on her lap. The pages were creased and stained with time. Each note wasn't just instruction, it was a philosophy. One passage stood out. "Trust begins in the quiet. Not with a command, but with a choice to stay when every part of you wants to run." There was a knock. Dr. Monroe stepped into the doorway. "May I come in?" she asked. Harper nodded. The vet knelt beside her and opened the cloth bundle. Inside was an old harmonica worn smooth with use. The initials EL were carved into the side. "She carried it through college," Dr. Monroe said. "Said dogs listened better to music than to shouting. Said it reminded them of something older than fear." Harper didn't say anything. She just held the harmonica, like something sacred, like a piece of someone she'd never stop needing. Outside, the wind shifted, and Ghost, lying beneath the cottonwood tree, lifted his head. But not everyone was celebrating. That same week, Harrison Grant's media team began releasing edited clips, footage of Ghost's early aggression, stripped of context, twisted to look like he was unstable, dangerous. June found one of the headlines late one night. "Untrained dog a threat to public safety," complete with a blurry image of Bramble mid-lunge. No one had to ask where it came from. They gathered in the kitchen, Harper, June, and Dr. Monroe, papers scattered across the table. The wind howled outside. Ghost lay by the hearth unfazed. "He's trying to discredit her," Dr. Monroe said. "If he spins it fast enough, people won't remember what really happened." "He's scared," June replied. "She did more with no tools in 5 minutes than his whole team could in 5 years." Harper sat still, eyes fixed on the firelight dancing across the wall. Then she whispered, "Then we show them again." No one argued. They understood. What happened at the fair wasn't a fluke. It was a beginning. In the days that followed, horse trailers rolled down their gravel drive, each carrying dogs with stories too long for shelters and temperaments too wounded for most trainers. Border collies labeled too reactive. Cattle dogs punished for being too wild. German shepherds surrendered after years of cruelty. They came with trembling limbs or defiant stares, but none came with trust. And yet every day, Ghost moved among them. Not as an alpha, not as a showpiece, but as something else. A witness, a presence, a kind of peace. Even Bramble, the one most damaged of them all, began to mirror him, slowly, cautiously. By the end of the week, even the reporters started whispering. Instead of shouting, they didn't know exactly what they were seeing, but they knew they'd never seen it before. And once you witness something real, it's impossible to look away. By midwinter, what had started as whispers had turned into something louder. Calls from the state capitol, emails from national news outlets, invitations from universities, grants, and even corporate endorsements. Everyone wanted to know how a quiet girl and a damaged dog had done what professional handlers couldn't. But Harper Lane didn't answer those calls. Her compass was simple and handwritten. Her mother's words lived in a journal and in her memory. Do no harm. Be the place they run to, not from. The real change wasn't in the headlines. It was in Bramble. For a week he had kept to the edges of the paddock, never straying far from Ghost but never letting himself belong. He flinched at sudden movements, tensed at every voice. His body held fear like a wire pulled too tight. Harper didn't reach for him. She didn't give commands. She waited. Then one Saturday evening, with golden light pouring across the fields and the wind barely brushing the grass, Bramble walked to where Harper sat reading. No sound, no signal. He just came. He lay beside her, one paw stretched out, his side touching hers. Ghost joined them moments later, No fanfare, no urgency. They sat like that for a long time. No leash, no commands, just trust. Spring came early that year. Snow melted into rich soil, and wild mustard lined the fences. On the highest ridge above the Red River Valley, the new sanctuary stood, a long, low structure built from salvaged wood and community labor. It had no flashy signs, just a small wooden plaque above the entrance. Honor of Eliza Lane, she listened first, beneath it, carved in smaller letters, and to those who still carry her voice. The Hayes Kinship Canine Sanctuary had begun, not as a rescue, not as a training center, but as a promise kept. Inside, the sanctuary unfolded like a memory made, real indoor and outdoor training spaces. Soft-floored kennels, not for cages, but for calm. A modest library full of Eliza's handwritten notes, diagrams, and research journals. Her legacy preserved not in trophies, but in understanding. Each morning, Harper walked through the halls, not like a child trying to live up to someone else's dream, but as someone who had grown into her own truth. Her mother's words weren't just ink now. They were instinct. Ghost followed her everywhere, but not like before. He no longer trailed in fear. He walked beside her now, his head high, eyes alert. He had become the quiet cornerstone of the sanctuary. Not a mascot, not a pet, a teacher. When new dogs arrived, those who still flinched, who couldn't bear to be touched, Ghost met them first. No dominance, no growl, just a slow approach, a steady presence, and an unspoken message. You're safe here. And somehow, they understood. Dr. Monroe came every Tuesday, sometimes with veterinary students. From the nearby university, they sat cross-legged in the grass while Harper spoke, not from a podium, never elevated, just seated among the dogs, one hand resting on Ghost's back. She didn't lecture. She told stories about trauma stored in muscle, about touch that could be permission, not possession, about patience, the kind that doesn't expect results, just offers a chance. She talked about Bramble's first tail wag, about the bloodhound who took a week to eat from her hand, about Ghost's first night sleeping without waking in panic. The students listened, because she did. Then one Thursday in early May, a black SUV rolled up the gravel path. The dust behind it wasn't a storm this time, more like a sigh. The door opened, and Caleb Grant stepped out. Harrison's son. He wasn't dressed like his father, no suit, no arrogance. In his hand was a manila envelope, its corners softened from being opened and read over and over. For a long moment, he stood at the gate, unsure whether to knock or leave. Harper met him halfway down the lane. Ghost flanked her, calm but present. Caleb didn't speak. He just handed her the envelope and said softly, "It's from him. He wrote it before the stroke got worse. Said it had to be delivered in person." She took it without a word. Later, in the barn loft where her mother once sat during storms, Harper opened the letter. The handwriting was shaky, uneven, but the words were clear. Harper, by the time you read this, you'll have done more than I ever believed was possible. But I think part of me always knew your mother was right. I was just too proud to admit it. I built my name on control, on knowing better. She saw animals the way most people never bother to see each other. And now, because of you, I see it too. Tell your grandmother I'm sorry. Tell Dr. Monroe she was right to walk away when she did. And most of all, tell Ghost, thank you. Harrison Grant. There was something else in the envelope. A deed, stamped and notarized. It transferred ownership of the land adjacent to the sanctuary, an untouched meadow that rolled down into the next valley, perfect for expansion or for freedom. Harper folded the letter carefully and placed it in the drawer beneath her harmonica. That evening, as golden light spilled over the ridge, she stood at the fence line, Ghost beside her. Bramble rested nearby, one ear flicking in the breeze. Behind them, volunteers laughed near the barn, calling in dogs for dinner. The lights of the sanctuary flickered on, warm and steady. There was peace, not perfection, not the absence of pain, but peace. Harper reached into her pocket and ran her fingers over the old harmonica, its metal smoothed by years of touch. She hadn't played it in public since the fair, but Ghost still stirred when he heard it. Tonight she lifted it gently to her lips. The notes rose, not for performance, but for remembrance. A mother's vision, a dog's second chance. A community changed, not by spectacle, but by one girl who refused to stop listening. As she lowered the harmonica, Ghost pressed his shoulder to her leg, his gaze fixed on the horizon where golden light turned the hills into fire. Harper knelt beside him. "I never made you change," she whispered, her hand resting on his fur. "I just waited long enough to hear what you needed." In the distance, young dogs barked, chasing butterflies across the tall grass, and behind them, the sanctuary stood, quiet, open, still listening. Some stories don't end. They echo. In the way we treat others, in the way we listen, in the quiet patience we offer when no one else will. What started with a broken dog and a grieving girl became a sanctuary, not just for animals, but for all of us searching for a little more kindness in the world. If this story moved you, please don't forget to like the video. It helps us share these moments with more people who need them. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. There's more to come, real stories, real voices, and a whole lot of heart. Thanks for watching. Until next time, listen closely and lead with compassion.